There was a moment when I was younger. It kind of really defined what I want in my life and what I want to do for people. But I feel like that was just a shadow to come of this specific moment right now that I'm about to speak about. That really defined it. I remember when I was in ninth grade. I used to live in a two-story house, and we had a garage, and I made it into my game room. And I remember that I used to come home, make myself a burrito in the microwave in my garage, and play games. And then when I was done with that and I wanted to go upstairs, I'll go upstairs. I had like a Windows Me, and I used to play all these games. When I first found out about emulators and stuff, and I downloaded like every game that the Super Nintendo had, and I just stood there playing all day while I used to watch Comedy Central, used to watch Scrubs, and I had the AC unit blowing on me, sitting there playing the games, and it was just like the greatest feeling. I just to have all those things right, just perfectly all in tuned, and it just felt like I just had a piece of heaven. It just this feeling, I don't know, it just I can't describe it. Just it's an ambiance, and every day I just wish that I can live that and I could just give that to other people. The way those games made me feel when I used to play them back in the day, that's what made me into a game designer. That's what I wanted to do with my life, to replicate that feeling that I had of wonder and just beauty and just the feeling of heaven, and just be able to give it to other people, because I think that's the most important thing in my life, for me at least, when it comes to that.
That's a great way to put it, Carlos. And welcome to another episode of the Jargon podcast. It's your host, Ruben Gutierrez, and this is my special guest,
Carlos De Juan, aka Many Wounds.
Exactly. Let's go. So I had a special thing set up because I wanted to kind of bring Carlos in, because nowadays, because we're so, I guess, involved with our own lives and just indoors nowadays, it's a lot better and a lot more opportunity for people to just kind of be playing games and kind of seeing things in a different perspective, whether it's intrinsically or just physically. And so I bring Carlos on because he's not just someone who's impacted my life, importantly, he's also someone who's impacted a lot of people's lives, and at the same time is a game creator himself and has been working tirelessly on his own projects and his own goals. And although I do want to bring people who are underground into the light a little bit, at the same time I want to show people that regardless of the struggles that we go through and the momentary challenges, that there is always an opportunity to overcome. And so I think Carlos is a great example of that. And so to start off, man,
I appreciate that.
How you been?
Recently not so good, but I started off pretty good. COVID was whatever. We started, the show started shutting down because I work at Medieval Times. The show shut down, and I was like, "Oh, this is getting real." When that happened, I was like, "Cause they'll put us to work."
Yeah.
So that's a moment of realization. Okay, this is a little different. This is actually affecting my job. And then we all got laid off, and I was like, all right, we'll see what we can do. I got unemployment. It was a while before I got it. It was kind of stressful. This Florida system is garbage when it comes to unemployment and all this benefits. But eventually when I got it, it wasn't so bad. I was doing good. I was working on the game. I had more time because when I was working Medieval Times, I was working 6 days a week and just doing the grind to become a knight and stuff like that. And as soon as I passed my test to start my night training,
whoop, whoop.
Boom, COVID hit, and we all got laid off. And I was like, this is so beautiful. When I first got approved to start my night, to start the training for head, leg, shoulders, that I got into an accident. And then after that, when I finished the test, then this happened. I was like, man, there's every obstacle in my way trying to hold me back. But that's my testament, is that no matter what it is, you keep going. That's what Many Wounds means to me, because I created this story called Paradox back in the day, and that's like my, what would you call it? I forgot what's that.
I guess you're like your magnus opus.
Yes, that's literally what it is, and I want to eventually create that in the end. And there's a main character called Many Wounds, and I feel like that's me internally, and his symbol is the phoenix. He literally has the phoenix, and that's who I feel like I represent. That's what's inside of me, that no matter how many hits, how many cuts I get, no matter how many wounds I receive, I still keep going. I rise again like the phoenix. And that, I always felt that way. And so that's why I have him as my main character and my mascot, and as my alias for game creating. Other than that, going back to the COVID, after that happened, I was working on the game, and I guess just being indoors again from working 6 days and working out too, like 3 days a week or whatever, staying indoors and not doing anything. Oh my gosh, my body just started breaking down, and it sucked. Because I was cooking good food and stuff like that. I was going in, man.
Always got to eat right, yeah.
That's right. And I think it was because I was eating a little too much sweets and stuff. Because I went from, like, not eating sweets to, like, baking cakes and all that. Yes. I like to cook, throw down, ladies. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But eventually, I feel like it just caught up to me. And, like, anxiety, too. I got problems with anxiety. I almost died from drinking Monster Energy drink years ago. And it really affected me traumatically.
Do you want to go into that a little bit or no?
Eventually. Okay. But yeah, it was something that it took years to overcome. I put myself in a bad place, and again, like the Phoenix, I rose and overcame it. And I just had myself a moment of that recently with this after COVID, when I got severely sick in my stomach, and I think I developed an ulcer or something happened. I don't know, but I had stomach problems and intestinal problems. And it was a point where my stomach was burning so hot, and it wasn't just burning from like acid reflux. It was like I felt literal heat, and it was just burning through. And I went through like hell again, because like when I went through the Monster Energy drink, that was like literal hell. There was a point where I thought I did die, and I was in hell. That's how bad I felt every day, because it just messed me up.
And so let me ask you this, based on like just your experiences and the trials that you've had to overcome, what do you think is like, what is the best way for you to keep your focus even during these type of times when the anxiety is starting to kick in, or when you're starting to feel heavy in your head, or things of that nature start to appear?
Well, first of all, I just focus on what I love, period. I think if you focus on what you love, for me, I have little tricks. You find little triggers what cause you to feel like that, and you find little tricks to overcome it. For me, I'll put on stuff that I used to watch or listen to when I was young, when I was a child, and put myself in a good place, and just find my center, or listen to like nice music, put myself in, like, have a cool fan. So recreating those moments that I had that were peaceful, I felt like heaven. I used to play Dearly Beloved when it first happened with the Monster Energy from Kingdom Hearts. That gave me like some kind of like stillness. Mm-hmm. And even though where there's war, but like, like there's ways to overcome some of these things. It's just you gotta find your center, and that takes time, but you can do it. I mean, I was really bad. Like, I should have took medication to help me. I feel like now it's affecting me because it's affecting my health because of the stress and anxiety. But for me, what really helped too, that made the biggest difference recently, was when I started working in Medieval Times, and I was working 6 days running. Like, that's a very physical job. You're running around, taking care of horses, the show and stuff, training, and then I would do an hour of the gym before or after, and all that cardio and exercise, like all that crap that I used to feel, like it went away. Like, it wasn't. I would have anxiety here and there, but like it didn't affect me. I just kept going, and
So you just kind of pushed through it all, and then kind of made sure that what you were focused on was what was right in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting too, that a lot of times what happens to us and what people, I guess, kind of forget is that the mind and body are two parts that kind of equal each other and come together. And so the same way you were kind of getting your experiences and getting your physical environment to be in tune with what you wanted, and then your mental capacity to be on point, because you know what I'm saying, you kind of like were able to culminate that environment that you needed to get yourself past that, like I had there's a couple experiences for myself where I kind of had to overcome like a certain aspect of myself, or just in general. Like, perfect example is like whenever you go out like drinking, that feeling of you're about to throw up, like how do you stop that? How do you stop yourself from like basically you know what I'm saying, exploding, whether it's internally or externally, or how to keep yourself kind of focused even when you have certain trials ahead of you. And I think that's kind of a great way to put it, to kind of keep yourself engaged, because I think for myself that as long as we stay living in the moment but always think about the future, we can get to where we want to be, so that we never stagnate.
You see yourself where you want to be, all you gotta do is walk towards it. And if you just keep walking towards it, even though you don't know if you're gonna get there or not, eventually a journey of 1,000 steps, one step at a time. You'll get there in 1,000 steps.
And it's kind of interesting too the way you put that, because one of my friends, John, and you know him, he kind of brought up that example a long time ago, where like you're walking towards the person that you want to be, but you should never look at yourself in the process, because you might look odd or weird. You know what I'm saying? Like your eye might look a little bigger, your arm might look a little different. So it's more like just trusting in the process and just continuing on.
That's like in high school when I was trying to grow my hair long, and then like halfway in you look so stupid. You're like, yo, I want to cut this off. And they're like, no, just commit to it. I would tell myself. And then eventually I grew my hair long. I was like, oh, that looks good. You know, I don't look stupid.
Weird. And commit to it, and commit to the process, and just really I think it's also about self-confidence and just trusting yourself. It always starts with you. I know for myself, a lot of the lessons that I've learned recently is, and I'm the type of person that always wants to help people. You know, it's why I started this podcast and why I'm always going above and beyond for others at the same time. But I've learned for myself as well that in terms of everything, you must make sure that you're okay. Because once you're okay, you're able to help others. The same way when you're on an airplane, you got to put your mask on first before you put somebody else's on, because there's not enough time, you know. And in life, there's not enough time to always be worrying about everybody else except yourself. You got to make sure that you're good and you're centered and that you're constant. And so as the independent variable, you can then act upon these other factors in your life and become a part of it and become a part of the process and help them, while at the same time being able to be that constant, you know, along with your life and a pillar. And speaking of that, I kind of want you to divulge a little bit, like, so how was the process of kind of creating this game that you have now, and what is the game about?
Okay, so essentially, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So essentially, I always wanted to make a video game since I was 4 years old. It has never changed. When I was younger, where I lived, the roof had like sparkles, and then I remember too that day I was playing Mario or something like that, and then I beat it, and then like I said to myself that this is what I want to do with my life. I want to make stuff like that and give people the feeling. And I guess later on it just evolved more. And I remember being in the room and looking up at those stars, and like I feel like there's a reason why the stars are there. And then, you know, I was talking to my mom, and she's like, you know, one day you could be like that, you know. And that kind of stuck with me a little bit, because I want to be like that, because those stars were beautiful and how they made me feel. It's always been that. It's been, there's something I want to do, and it made me feel a certain way, and I want people to feel what that I felt, that feeling that just felt so good.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like everybody deserves to have that feeling.
Yeah, that empowering and that support. Yeah. That's where kind of like a lot of the things stem from for ourselves. We were kind of talking about it earlier. We had a friend who was showing us videos of their creativity, because they were all film majors, and one of the girls kind of stood out. And she stood out not just because of her background, but she stood out because she was self-confident. Because you could tell that she had, like, spiritually, you could tell that she had her back and other people had her back. And she had that support, where it wasn't that they were physically there, but it was just that they believed in her. And she believed in herself. And that's kind of like, and that's a great feeling to have, and something that's important for all of us, that we need to have not just support from others, but supporting ourselves to make sure that we're good. Mm-hmm. And I know that I keep focusing on the myself aspect right now, but it's just important, because I think that a lot of times we'll get lost in the process of trying to give back to others, but we always got to give back to ourselves as well, and make sure that, at least in our mental state and in where we're at, we're good, so that we can help each other to the best of our ability.
And some people, you know, sometimes you got to realize, you know, you're trying to get to where you want to get to, but, you know, you might be just floating in the ocean.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it, and you just keep paddling. Some people have the strength to just push through until they reach shore.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just got to find an island and just rest for a while.
Yeah.
Eat some coconuts, whatever you got to do to build that back up. Exactly. And just enjoy. Even though you're in a crappy situation, just look around you. You're on a beautiful island out in the middle of nowhere. Enjoy where you're at, even though you're not where you want to be.
Or you can just play Animal Crossing.
Lose your soul.
Or just play. But I definitely like that. I definitely like that analogy, because it's important to kind of keep your mental state up and give yourself that peace of mind sometimes. Because we can never revel in our victories. We can only just appreciate them and just continue moving forward. Because there's so much more to experience, and there's a lot of things that we kind of have to ourselves that will keep us going and growing. And speaking of that,
which is all about the journey, keep going.
And so Eden's Lost. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, Eden's Lost. I never even finished how it led me to one.
Oh, I apologize. Go ahead.
Good.
Run that.
No, it's all good. So that was the moment where I felt like I wanted to become a video game designer. That was and it's never changed. It's always been the same. My father told me that I was going to grow out of it, but I never did. But fast forward into the future, my uncle had a heart attack. and I went to go see him with my grandmother and my brother and spend time with him. And then, you know, I looked at him and I was like, man, he's got like gray hair. It's crazy. And then I look at myself in the mirror and I was like, yo, I'm getting older. What am I doing with myself? Like, I have dreams and I've always wanted to do these things, but I just try to attempt to do these things but never commit to it. And so I was like, that's it. I just, you know, I need to do this.
Agreed.
I need to do this. And so after that, I figured out all the information I needed to get to know how to get started to actually make a game, because all this stuff is just steps. Like, you first got to figure out, you need to know where you're going just to get started, you know? And then from there, you got to build yourself up. And so I figured out what was the best way for me. And so I figured getting a part-time job. And then from there, it was to find software and stuff that I can use to develop my game. And so I got into Game Maker because I wanted to do 2D games starting off. And I tried Unity, but it wasn't for me. I didn't like the way the interface felt like. I might eventually switch to it because just the nature of what I'm making, it's too big and Game Maker might not be able to work it. But I'm trying to create the prototype within Game Maker and have something solid. And it took a long time. When I first started, I didn't think I was going to be able to do none of this. Like, I wasn't unaware of how programming works. You know, I was familiar with it. I tried with HTML back in the day and stuff.
We also took a game design class. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we did together. That's right.
His name was Mr. Story, too. It was great.
Yeah, I made his life living hell. I used to hump him and everybody around me, just cause trouble. I was a little what you call that? A little imp or something.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. So this is a great story about the class. So there was one day, because we used to create games, right? And we used to learn how to code and stuff like that. And then after we finished the coding, if we got done a little early, we'd play some video games or just hang out, right? And so we got on the server one time and we're playing Halo, the first Halo. And we were playing, and we just had so many people on the server that we crashed the school server for like 2 days. Yeah. Pretty much got Mr. Story fired.
Pretty much.
But from then on, the class got even better because he was like, all right, I don't give a fuck anymore. Let's just do it. Let's just do what we want. So we kept making games. But we also had like the freedom of just expressing ourselves and creating what we thought was cool and stuff like that. And so although we kind of ruined his life at the same
gosh.
Even though that it is what it is, I think that at the same time he kind of gave us the opportunity to look at things and just appreciate what we have. And that's kind of like what I think Carlos kind of gets into as well with his past and what was going on, is that even if your situation is shitty, even if you're suffering from depression, anxiety, and all these negative aspects that you see in yourself, that you just always try to appreciate what you have, even if you have nothing, because whatever you have, you can work with it. If you just have yourself, work with that. Work with yourself, because if you can get your mental state to be on point, and when I say on point, like together, focused, have a single goal in mind or a goal in mind, you can achieve what it is that you need to do. You just have to make sure that it's manageable. That's all it is. It's just about being grounded.
It's just steps. There's layers to it, and you got to get here to get there, to start here to do that. You know what I'm saying? To build a cart, you first got to find wood. Well, how you get wood? You got to chop a tree down. So now you got to learn how to chop a tree. It's steps to get to where you want to be. Or if you had the money, you could buy the wood to build it. Or if you had a lot of money, you could just buy the cart. Yeah. So there's various steps to get where you want to be, to have what you want. But you got to gauge where you at and try to figure out how to get there.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
And the learning is fun too, because you like he's saying, you learn things that are new that you didn't expect that you would, and you may find some things that are interesting as well. And that's the great thing about taking risks and taking those chances. You know what I mean? It's really about giving yourself the opportunity to see where you can go and see where your potential can be, because nobody really knows what you can do until you do it, or how far you can get.
And there's a lot of people who won't believe in you, Like when I started making this game, people were looking at me like, that's cute, or okay, sure, oh yeah, you're making a game. Yeah, it was a lot of that. From my own family too. It was, people will say they support you and they believe, but they don't really believe until you, like my uncle said, no one really cares until you have something to show.
Exactly.
And so that's the unfortunate truth of things, But for me, that's real. You know what I'm saying? That's
real. It's just a realistic thing.
That's what it is.
And we can't hate anybody for it. It's because it's just a fear of taking risk, and fear causes us to do crazy things. And it's nobody's fault. It's just all about understanding and learning from those mistakes and from those opportunities to kind of build ourselves up. Because Carlos, you've been doing this now for what, 3-4 years?
Yeah, 3 years at least.
And tell us about the process of kind of learning how to build this game up now from the beginning that you started.
So once I figured I can use Game Maker, I just looked up as many tutorials as I could. I found courses like on YouTube. I found courses on Udemy. They have sales, so instead of paying $100 whatever bucks, you know how they do.
You pay $99.
I paid $10. You know, and just I would download apps because I first started before I got into Game Maker. I went into C# because I learned a little bit of it before. And so I was learning. That's how come I knew in Unity, but once I played Unity, I realized that it's not gonna for 2D and whatever. It's not gonna work. That's when I went to Game Maker, download all the things, watched as many videos as I could, and when I first started, I just watched videos and I just kept finishing the tutorials right by just watching them and not actually coding. Then I started coding. I was like, what the hell am I doing? I didn't know where to start, and that was because I didn't start. When I actually started coding the stuff while I was watching it, I started realizing. And when I tweaked with it and messed with it, I learned from mistakes, and I grew in my knowledge and understanding of why it worked. And then I figured out, okay, I want to build this. How could I build this? Well, the tutorial didn't have this, so I would just look it up on Google, which... little bit of information. If you're a programmer, everybody who programs knows that people just look stuff on GitHub or whatever. Even if you're a professional, you'll get stuff and put it in. You plug, ain't really supposed to do that, if you're legit. But yeah, no.
Think smart.
Everybody does. Yeah. That's the reality of it. And so there would be things I didn't know how to make. Sometimes there was no tutorials, but I would combine components together. I knew that this was this, and it worked with this. So if I put these two things together and make something that acted like a middleman between those two things. I know it's kind of vague and convoluted with that actual example, but essentially it would work. Mm-hmm. And now I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of how it works. It's just smaller components building upon other components to build medium components to be part of the whole mechanic. It's kind
of like if you think about it in simple structures and complex structures. Anything that is complex is just a bunch of simple things or simple processes put together to become that complex thing. The same way like an avalanche starts off as a small snowball.
Exactly. That's what I always used to say. It was like simplicity is complexity and complexity is simplicity. You have one thing, you call it a game. Or you can, a house. You call something a house, right? But guess what? In that house has many components, what we call rooms. And those rooms have objects, and those objects have uses. Smaller details, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. To the grand whole of what just one thing is. And
that's the cool thing about it too, like especially gaming nowadays, people or it's not just people, but a lot of games nowadays kind of have similar ways of gameplay or ideas and stuff like that, and they all kind of build upon each other. But the thing that always sets them apart nowadays, or at least the things that I've seen in the past 5 years, is this little details. It's something that's always mentioned every time I'm in the forums, every time I'm reading a review or something like that. It's always the little things that catch people, that make them interested or keep them engaged, because we are living in a world where a lot of the stuff that we experience now has become generic or just general. And so when you have those little nuances, like a different color, a different shade, something new that you haven't seen, like the sky is red instead of blue, then it catches people's attention and you can kind of go with that. And so we use those kind of little aspects nowadays to kind of show that we can create something unique in the same field.
Exactly. And so there's many ways to go about it, and I have my qualms on certain things. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I want to make something that I want to play. So I can hit certain notes that people want to see in a game, but for me, it won't come from my heart. And I think that's the most important thing, because when it comes from your heart, that's where it all flows out. Mm-hmm. And it's genuine because it comes from you, and people see a part of you. You see a part of your world, something that came from you, the
honesty that people don't usually get a lot.
And that's what people want. And I know for a fact it's what people want, because when you have social interactions, people respect and genuinely like people who are authentic to themselves, mm-hmm. who are willing to risk them getting hurt or ridiculed to show who they really are.
The vulnerability.
And those who are scared of that themselves are the ones who ridicule those people. but secretly everyone always respects those people who can just be themselves no matter what. That reflects into everything else.
Because it becomes a layer of yourself, and people can kind of feel upon that. And that's the cool thing about the body and the mind, and not so much that they're together, but they're components that are in a kind of that infinite loop where they're together, but at the same time they can also be separate. Because along with training your mind, you got to train your body too. And so like Carlos was talking about how his experiences working at this job, because at least from what I've known Carlos, he's a very creative person, he's a very mental person. So what I mean by that is that I think personally that his mind is stronger than his body. And that's for most people. But the idea behind that is that now that his body was catching up with his mind, it was giving him more of a unity, or a sense of unity. So that the subconscious, which is, your body, which we control, and the mind, which is the activity, once they are both at the same level, it's not just an addition. Now it's a multiplication, Now the power is multiplied. The things that you can do are that much greater, because now you have both sides kind of coming together in this perfect balance.
Exactly. Well, let's go back to the process of making this game. So eventually I started building the game, and I started building a little something, but I was like, it's not enough. And to myself, I was like, how can I build these complex things, these save systems, and how do I create an inventory for an RPG using 2D arrays, a store, or even a DS map and stuff like that, a data structure map. It's like all these concepts that I'm like, what the hell is this? I don't know. And I need to know this to be able to do this. And I thought I was never going to learn it. And then eventually, there's a point where you're like, I could understand this. And then you break through. And you're like, oh, I understand this. But then there's still a high curve of still more to learn. And you always learn more every day. But eventually, you do get to that point where like, okay, I got this. And there's always ways to figure out what you want to do. Once you understand the syntax and why it works the way it works, you get in the flow, the rhythm, boom, all right, let's make it happen. And that's what I was doing, One thing I did notice, though, that kind of affected me negatively is like I try to do everything all at once, because I have to do everything since I'm by myself. I have to do the art, I have to do, the music, pick the music out. I had to, like, see how I'm going to advertise this, to create the Patreon and all that stuff. And I try to make this big, prototype. And because I was trying to make this big prototype off the bat, which was a stupid mistake, I should have just made a simple game and just made that, But I mean, I took it as a way of me learning as well, because RPGs are complicated, and I guess for me, I'm stupid enough that I always jump into the deep end of the pool. Like that's how I roll. Like I don't shallow in. It's like, all right, let's dive deep, Yeah. Let's go in. Let me see what this whole thing is, so I can see the big picture of why it works the way it works. I mean, it worked for me because that's just how I am. Not everybody's the same. I think I probably would have got farther if I took small steps and eventually went to a run, instead of going full speed dive.
And that's some of the things we learn just through the process.
Exactly. You learn how to be more efficient at what you want to do the more you do it. And obviously your love is the driving force for it, because if not, you wouldn't want to deal with this crap, because that's how it felt like. But yeah, eventually I started building something nice. I created a Patreon. It's if you want to look it up, it's Phoenix Heart Entertainment on Patreon. So just type in Patreon and then Phoenix Heart Entertainment in Google. You can see it there. I haven't updated in a long time, especially the fact that I was working every day. I went from part-time to full-time to sacrifice because I needed the money, long story short, because I was like, I can pull all my time to this, or I can get more money. Because when I started making the sprite art, I was like, I think I prefer something a little more professional, even though I know how to draw, especially that doing all that load is just too much, doing the art and then this, and then because what I'm trying to do is like layers, so you have the sprite art of the character and then armor pieces and stuff like that. It gets overwhelming, so I wanted to use somebody else to make that while I would code and stuff like that. And I asked quite a few different people, and it's a lot of money to do this, go figure. You wouldn't have realized that.
Yeah,
but
it's not easy.
It's not easy, and that's the problem with looking something from the outside. You don't realize what the amount of work it really takes to make that thing or do that specific thing. And I feel like someone told me that the other day too, but I can't remember the instance. But for this instance, yeah, like you don't realize what to do simple games it's such a process, especially if you never learned how to code or anything like that. It's such a process, and you know, you got to figure out the logic. Imagine a puzzle piece that you don't even know what the pieces are, you know, and what the picture is. And so you're trying to put the pieces together. You're like, I don't know how, you know, you use references and stuff, but like, you know, but eventually you start picking up and you understand. But yeah, now I'm getting close to finishing the prototype. I'm getting there, and I'm hoping, my plan is to release the prototype with a level and a quest or two to do, so people can really feel what the mechanics and stuff are.
And do you still have that demo on your Patreon that people can try?
Yeah, there's the Patreon, the old stuff, like I would say pre prototype. The first one was more like legit SNES, like 16 by 32 sprite of the character and stuff. Now I kind of went from that to 32 by 64. I might scale down because it's just a load on me unless I had a team. I would love to have a programmer to take that time to help so I can focus on the art, or vice versa. But yeah, like that's the process for me right now, is to eventually finish this prototype and then try to get as many followers to build a type of income that I can use to pay people who can come work on the project to help build this a reality, because this is what I want to do. You know, eventually I want to build a entertainment company that does multiple medias, not just video games, music, anime, martial arts, all the stuff that I love doing, you know. And
so actually, my bad, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but speaking of the martial arts, talk a little bit about that, because at the same time, I think martial arts plays a great aspect in terms of not just the physical aspect of ourselves, but also the mental.
I started martial arts, and I've always been around that stuff. Family, you know, we're Puerto Ricans. We like that kind of stuff. We look up, you know, Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, all that stuff.
I feel you. I did a little bit of karate when I was young too.
There you go. Yeah. And I always wanted to do it, but our family didn't really have money like that, and so not until 5th grade, when I moved over to Lake George Elementary, that there was opportunity to do after school program for Martial Arts World, which ironically years later I ended up working for them for a while. But that's where my first taste of actually doing martial arts. And you know, I was actually pretty good when I was young. I just had a natural talent for it, but unfortunately I couldn't stay for too long because the instructor was a dick. He was threatening to throw boots at kids' face and stuff like that. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. Everyone was getting upset. Everybody was about to take their kids out, and then they ended up firing him because he was getting crazy. He was something wrong with him. I don't know. He liked control and power. That's how it is. Some people get attracted to certain things because of those reasons.
Yeah, some people just lose themselves. I always think about it as, at least more recently than ever, it's just really about just being grounded. Because you can never forget that we are a part of nature and that we fall victim to the same things. Because a lot of aspects of ourselves, whether you're talented, whether you're a genius, whether you're dumb, whether you're not very fluent in speaking any type of language, I think the biggest aspect of ourselves that keeps us connected is the humanity within us. And the fact that we are that we all have the same attributes to ourselves. It's just all about understanding those attributes. And so when you understand that everybody has a certain level of humanity within them, that's when you can really come together and find the connections beyond the physical and beyond even the mental, because it's just an instinctual thing.
Yeah, and it was really fun, man. I enjoyed it.
So what type of martial arts have you studied?
Taekwondo is where I started, and then I did capoeira when I met my friend Anthony in high school.
Woo, shout out to the boy Anthony.
Falcone. Tony Falcon.
Zion.
Doing big things, you know, making it happen. Yeah, I met my friend Anthony in high school. And that's where I really got to pop off because, like I said, I could never really do martial arts because we couldn't afford it. And then Anthony was doing capoeira, and so he would teach me everything he knew. And he was like a prodigy, man. Like, he would pick stuff up like that. And so, like, me and him have our own, like, little rivalry of getting better and better and better. But he was always teaching me, so that's where that was at.
We'll never forget, the student surpasses the master eventually.
We'll see. At this point, I don't think so. It's pretty savage. So, yeah, he would teach me. He would folklore would teach him stuff or whatever, and then after the class he's like, yo, I'm gonna show you. I'm like, do it. And then this is how you jinga right here, you know what I'm saying, and then this is how you get into the halda and all this stuff. And then, you know, I start getting better, and then they would let me go into the halda, which is like a circle where everybody will clap and you know, play with somebody else, throwing kicks and all this stuff. And they were like, yo, what the heck? When did Carlos learn how to what the heck? And they were like, yeah, what's up? What's good? Throwing mariposas, which is like butterfly, not twists, but kicks and stuff like that. And doing all this cartwheels and spins and stuff. They're like, yo, what did you learn? Yeah. That was so much fun, man. That I had such... And just the community too, capoeira, just everybody, it's like a family. They party. Yeah, there's the drama, but
who doesn't have drama, right?
Right.
Good
all
Lord.
The parties, the capoeira parties, they go in, they take care of each other, man. It was a lot of fun, man. I had such a good time. Capoeira is so good. I miss martial arts. You feel so good. I mean, I had something to replace it for the meantime. Was when I started working martial arts, training all that stuff. And training sword fighting and all that. I mean, it's not real sword fighting, but I mean, to me, it almost feels more difficult than sword fighting because you're exaggerating every move that you're doing instead of, because I always keep it tight when I fight because I used to do dag and try to get the hits in, right?
Minimizing your movements.
Yeah, and being efficient. Here you gotta be the most inefficient, and you gotta like stretch your arm out and make the hits and blows big and wide so that everybody can see it and it looks dramatic. All that stage fighting, and that tires you out, man. Because you're like, imagine you squatting the entire time while you're moving and being overly exaggerated with your movements at the same time. Imagine doing that quick in a span of like 2 minutes. It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Do you feel like that your martial arts training and kind of like your physical activities in the past have helped you get here to this point?
No, it made it worse.
Really?
Yeah, because I had to undo a lot of stuff, like the stepping and stuff like that. Like I think the capoeira kind of affected me because I was doing weird stepping and I couldn't catch on to certain things.
Yeah.
And every time while I was training for head, leg, shoulders, which is you gotta learn how to do basically the movements of the strikes before you actually learn the fights. And if you pass that, that's when you can become a knight or train to be a knight, actual knight. And all my moves, for some reason, I always kept the sword. I unsubconsciously moved the sword close to me.
Yeah.
Every time I would try to strike to get closer to the actually hitting you.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, that's how I fought in dag. That's
subconsciously you
that's
try to
how
whoop some
fight,
ass.
Yeah. And so like throwing those moves is so wide. It's like so inefficient. I'm wasting time, and you don't realize it. It's just subconsciously. And so I felt like it kind of hindered me a lot. Matter of fact, I think they even tell you like it's better that you don't know anything coming in.
Really?
Yeah, because then you just absorb whatever it is that they're teaching you. You know what I'm saying?
It's a switch up.
Yeah.
And you kind of like immerse yourself in that world after that.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Like immerse yourself in the world of the medieval times, like the way the fighting style is, like the training and stuff like that.
You gotta let it go, man, and it's hard work, hard training. You know, a lot of people don't believe in you. They look at you, especially your size. Since I'm shorter, that wasn't the ideal look. Yeah. And so it was like, and then everybody there kind of got ahead for themselves. So that's kind of how it is. But you in showbiz, everybody's like that. Because even a throwback, going back real quick, like after I met Anthony, we did a lot of stuff. Man, there's so many layers, so many things to talk about. But I'm jumping back and forth. But me and Anthony eventually, later in our lives, when we started working martial arts world again, that's when we started doing stunts. Because Anthony went to Jersey for a while, and he met some famous stunt guy, and he learned all he could learn. Came down, and was like, "Yo, let's do stunts." Because we always wanted to do movies, and we always worked on projects and stuff. And we was like to film ourselves doing stuff, but he learned the real deal. And so now he came and it's like, "Look, let's do this for real." And he created Alpha Showcon, and we started doing like independent films and Sundance kind of film stuff, and trying to get a name for ourselves. Eventually, things kind of fell apart, and we couldn't continue on, and we all went our separate ways for that. But yeah, I was a refocus for me, and because there was a point. I love martial arts, but there's too much. Or not martial arts, but I love stunts and stuff like that. It was so much fun. I met so many people, and I learned so much. But eventually, I realized that I loved doing it, but I wasn't in love with it. It wasn't what I wanted to do.
That's deep.
Yeah, and so that's when I realized, video games is my love. That's what I want to do. Video games and animations and stuff like that. That's what I want to do. That's always what I ended up doing, and still though, it was like the boulder of thought of pushing it up the hill, that giant boulder. I'm like, oh no, I gotta push it up the hill. This is too much for me. That feeling always loomed over me. It's like, I have to eventually program. In my head, I thought eventually I was gonna find somebody And when they read my story or saw my art, they would join me. But realistically, hell no, that's not gonna work that way. That, do you know how many people asked the program and they were like, "I'll think about it," or "Oh yeah," and they never got back to me.
Oh, I'm gonna be real. You asked me to program too, and I was like, "My man," because okay, so a little bit about myself, about the game designing and stuff like that. So when we were in game design class, that's when I realized I didn't want to be a game designer.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was gonna be so much fun, but it's just a whole lot of coding, and it's not even about me like apologizing to my past self or anything like that. It was, I appreciate taking that class so that I understood that although I love playing video games and I love games and the messages, I'm just better off on a different side of that.
It's funny.
You know what I mean? But obviously that's just in my own way.
Yeah. For me, I really grew to love. I kind of like coding. It was cool, but like when I really understood what I was doing, I kind of fell in love with coding, and I just love the idea that I can just make whatever I want, you know, and figure out a way, like a puzzle, and then put the pieces together, and they're like, dang, yo, I just made this. This is so crazy, and I figured it out on my own, you know? And I feel like when it comes to life, that was a little secret I figured out. It's like when you first do something, you don't want to do it, and the reason I feel like you don't want to do it is because you're not confident in it. Because as soon as you become confident, you just invest yourself. You're about it. You know what I'm saying? Because
you know your capabilities, and then at the same time you want to see what you can be capable of. You know, it's about that here and in the future.
Almost like Dark Souls. When I first played Dark Souls, you're like
Dark Souls.
I remember going to the skeletons, and I'm like, yo, screw this. I can't beat this game. I stopped playing, and then Nelson somehow always convinces me to play again and teaches me how to love something, even though that I just don't like it. And freaking, I played it again, and I saw what he was saying, and I looked at it, and I was like, yeah, you're right. And there's much more to this game than I thought of just dying, whatever.
There's like the beauty and the challenge.
Yes, the beauty and the challenge is what he showed me. And that's when I realized how amazing this game was. And then towards the end, when I beat it, I was like, this game is life. You have all these obstacles, all these things. You think it's impossible to do any of these things. And then you do it, and you're like, okay, a small victory. And then you start doing this and that, and you figure this out, and then you beat a boss. You're like, dang, yo, that boss was crazy, and I beat it. What's next? And it eventually leads you to beat the game, and you're like, wow, this was crazy.
And never forget, too, that because the greatest part about Dark Souls is the learning curve. And it's because every mistake you make is going to teach you. Because when you die, you don't just die sometimes. Sometimes you get absolutely obliterated. And that feeling of obliteration is like, it's halfway I'm angry, but more than that, I'm like, you ain't gonna play me. You ain't gonna stop me. And then you press that restart. At least for myself. Let me speak for myself. When I hit that restart, I would just go back in and I would make sure to start going ham. Because there's no way this game is gonna make me put it down, you know?
That was not as bad as Bloodborne. Because I never played with other people, so I never summoned anybody. I just like, yo, I'll beat it, whatever, you know? And then Nelson's like, yo, just summon somebody. I'm like, no, I don't really feel like it. I can beat this game by myself. And I did it for Dark Souls, but I played Bloodborne. There was an instance where I went to fight Abigail. And he's like, just summon somebody. I'm like, no, I think I said I was a real man.
Yeah.
I could do this on my own. And then I go in there and I jump to strike him or her or whatever, and then she just double fisted, it kills me, and he just starts laughing at me, and I'm just like looking at him so pissed off. I was like, oh my gosh.
And that's the great thing too. I wanted to touch up on not so much the dying, but the competitive spirit that he was talking about when he had him and Anthony, and how they would always challenge each other. And that's that friendly competition that we all need for ourselves. Someone that can kind of push us forward, because we can push ourselves forward. And in the same vein, you can play the game and you can beat it by yourself. But there's also a cool thing about having people join you. And the cool thing about Dark Souls is that you can have people join you and you can have people against you. You know, you can have literal people from other games just come into your world and say, oh, you trying to do something cool? Nah. Oh, you trying to nah. Like,
and there's fun in that too. People mess around with that. They don't even kill you. They'll do stupid stuff to you know, lure a monster to you, and then you're like, oh my gosh, you know. There's so many things. People hold arenas, fight clubs.
Yeah, exactly.
So cool. It's creative ways of doing things like that. You know?
Exactly.
Taking something that I wasn't intended for and making it something more.
Exactly. Like Super Smash Bros. Melee. Good God. We'll talk about how fighting games got crazy. That thing is on crack.
Hilarious.
That is crack right there. And then it's funny too, because speaking about games and stuff like that and game creators, Sakurai, the person who made the game, has at this point just pleaded with the gaming community that this is not a fighting game, and we're like, we don't care. Yeah. We don't care what you think it was intended for, because, and that's the cool thing about it too. I guess there's positive and negatives to that, because people can take your work and like kind of corrupt it or ruin it. Yeah. But the cool thing is that people can get creative with your work and expand upon it so that it becomes more than what it was. And that's kind of like a lot of things that we have in our own lives, where we kind of look at things and we create personifications of objects. We create this imagery, these metaphors, these ideas and these concepts that sometimes aren't even actually physically here, but because we create them, they give us a new perspective on this world. And that's what's so great about a lot of these games, because like, for instance, speaking about Dark Souls and the difficulty, that was the point where people realized that gaming truly isn't dead. And what I mean by that is that it's not just about like watching a movie with a controller in your hand. It's really about being engaged and immersing yourself in that world and playing it for what it is and finding new things about it.
Mm-hmm. And even growing, you know, as a person too, in skill and maybe even, you know, mental, spiritually. You know?
Yeah, because there's a lot of people. I remember when I was working at GameStop, and there was a couple people that bought, they I think it was Dark Souls 1 or 2. They bought it and came back the next day and returned it, and I had no judgment for that. I had no hate. It's not, because it's nothing like that. Because I love those games, because I love a challenge, especially when the challenge is rewarding. It's not just like BS where it's like the HP is inflated or like the odds are stacked against you unfavorably. This is just, it's just all about learning. And once you get good, oh my God, you feel like a god in the game, and that's what you just. But anyways, so the dude returned it the next day, and I didn't have any shit. I was just like, hey man, it's all good. He's like, I'm gonna be real with you, this game ain't for me. I died 3 times and almost broke my TV. I was like, hey man,
oh my gosh,
hey man. And I tried one more time though. I was like, hey look man, I know that it was hard, but if you just continue to challenge yourself. He's like, look bro, I get it. And then from then on I was like, all right, so let me get your card real quick. And we'll return the game. But it's great though, and that's another aspect of it too, like knowing your strength and playing by your strengths. Maybe you're not that good at these type of games, but maybe you're good at fighting games. You know what I mean? Maybe it's more about the person-to-person mental game than it is against an AI or against a learning how to kind of play against the game itself.
And see how things are layering into itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to start going into like spirituality, because that's something that a quote that I always say, you know. And I'll start with this, that may or may not actually believe this, but is a very interesting way of seeing life. I feel like we are the moment of creation, echoing out throughout eternity, manifesting in different forms, and this is our current incarnation. And I feel like that's what everything is. It's different forms of the same thing, you know, all different colors, but it's all colors, you know. Mm-hmm. And I feel like everything is that. It's just mirror reflections of itself in different ways. And when you start looking at that, you can see in Eastern philosophy how they use nature to reflect upon something, you know. And there's so many different ways to look at life that way, because, you know, it's all the same thing in different ways.
And a lot of times, it's something that I've learned myself recently in terms of spirituality, is that a lot of the things that we like to talk about, and a lot of the, I guess, momentary phases in our lives, like childhood, adulthood, you know, old age, stuff like that, and then when you kind of stretch that all out, it becomes that kind of string of life, and you can kind of control that based on your own decisions and everything like that. And I think what's important is that for a lot of us, we always talk about what we want to do, always talk about these things. It's really all about just doing it and seeing what happens, because you never really know. Like, for instance, how the internet right now has become its own culture. It's becoming its own world, where it's like a second Earth, or ether Earth is what you get, I guess is another way to put it. But it becomes its own way of life at the same time, where people no longer want to deal with the reality of the world and want to live in that world. And I think that it's wrong to separate those aspects of it, because it's all together. It's like layers. Like, this physical world and this nature is the physicality of life. It is the reality of what we go through. But the internet and everything that is ethereal and spiritual are things that we can kind of use to connect each other in different ways and expand upon our own ideas and minds, so that we can see things for more than what they are. And that's what nature does. And like he was saying, like Carlos was saying, the Eastern philosophy.
Poetry is the written manifestation of spirituality.
Yeah.
And the eternal, you know? Trying to understand these metaphysical concepts in ways that, you know, don't seem so foreign and abstract, bringing it to earth and grounding it. And that's why poetry is so impactful and so emotional. You know.
It's why, like, so I was listening to one of my favorite comedians, Patrice, the other day, and it gets to a point where it's like, you know, algebra isn't what gets us through the bus ride to school. You know what I mean? These mathematics or these things that we learned in school isn't what gets us through life all the time. You know what sometimes gets us through life? Music, art, inspiration, things like that. You know, like
friends, connection, love,
exactly, relationships. You know what I mean? All of that. And like, for instance, like I'm not going to be on the bus listening to what is it, Pythagoras explain to me the theorem. No, I'm going to be listening to Biggie or Tupac spit that real, or just got to get in tune with my own inner feelings. That sometimes we got to channel that rage. Sometimes we have to channel those feelings of sadness and hype and happiness and all that stuff into what is it that we want to do in our own lives. Because the biggest thing about talking about all these things means that we haven't reached it yet. And that means that's more of on a general sense. And so what I mean by that is, as long as you're following your path and you believe in who you are and what you want to be, you can get there. Now, whether your goals are within reality or within yourself is irrelevant. As long as you make a plan and set it up for yourself, you will find that personal success, which is, I think, what everybody should be striving for. Because personal success will create that confidence, and that confidence will create those relationships with genuine people, or will create genuine relationships. So you'll know who you want to deal with for certain things. Like there's some people that, for instance, there's some people that Carlos will hit up with to talk about his game, to talk about different concepts, to see where he can go from that. And there's some people that he's going to talk to when he wants to go out to eat, when he wants to hang out, when he wants to play video games. You know what I mean? It's all about understanding these relationships that you have and really looking at people on that individual spiritual level about where they are mentally. Yeah. And I know this is a lot of stuff that's kind of like, you know, but it's just important.
There's people you can't talk to about what you want to do, because they're going to either shoot you down, they're not going to understand you. Yeah. And those people who don't understand you, you know, you can't blame them. You know,
100%. Yeah.
Just think about something that you don't like or you don't understand, and then someone asks you a question. What do you like about this that he just created? And you're like, I don't really have a response. Honestly, I don't really like that. You know?
Like for me, it's cooked spinach. I remember I ate cooked spinach one time, and it was so bad I threw it away. That's funny. My friend's grandma got so pissed because she took it personally, and because I was at a friend's house eating dinner, and this was the first time I ever said I don't want to eat that. Mm-hmm. And so it's just that's just a small example of like, if anybody ever talks about cooked spinach, I'm gonna mentally check out. I'll still be listening, but mentally I'm like, I hate that shit, so I'm not gonna listen. I'm not gonna care about it. But always try to listen to others so that you can get an understanding of where they're at. Because when you can understand each other, then you know how to take these approaches and these opportunities that may seem kind of difficult for them to appear are really always kind of popping up in front of us. It's just all about being prepared and knowing what's going on.
Yeah. Taking that criticism to understand where you stand, you know?
And never be afraid to give people constructive criticism if they're close to you. Because it's always important for others to understand where they're at in your eyes as well. Because it's not about caring what people think all the time. It's about understanding what people think and making sure that what you're doing is in line with your goals.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to what do you want? Mm-hmm. Is this what you want to have?
Yes, sir.
Like for me, I can ask 10 million people, what do you want in a game? But they're not going to be there while I'm making the game telling me add this, add that, or this. At the end of the day, I'm going to feel what I need to add. I'm going to have what I like, and I'm going to put in what I want. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, and a lot of the times, you know, people don't really give you really good feedback. And you just have to do it yourself. You have to figure out what is it that you want and just go for it.
Yep. And you got to analyze these things.
And that just falls back with everything else. At the end of the day, the question always comes out, what is it that you want, and how can I get it? How can I make it happen? And you just do it. Take the steps.
And speaking of the spirituality aspect of things, what games have you felt that have impacted you spiritually or given you that kind of idea where it's like, wow, this isn't just a game, this is a learning lesson? It's like for instance, just to speak about the feeling that you get where you beat a game and you're like, oh my God, like you're just emotionally, and you're just like, I just need to experience this for a little bit. I just beat this game and I'm feeling some type of way and I need to kind of just digest this. You know what I mean? And not that same feeling, but what kind of games have impacted you like that?
There's definitely tons of games that's the case. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you everything off the top of my head. If I haven't written down, it'd be great. But I mean, for starters,
off the top of your head,
the Zelda game, when I was laying there, like I said before.
Which one specifically?
Ocarina of Time.
Okay.
Sitting there, have the fan blowing in my face, my brother sleeping in the bed over there. It's nighttime, and just listen to the music and just getting lost in that world, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like life for me growing up wasn't so easy, and so I kind of lost myself in games, you know? And so
you needed that escape.
And they gave me the escape. They gave me the little piece of heaven that I periodically get a little piece throughout my life that I'm trying to replicate and then give it out to other people if that's even possible, God willing. But yeah, and I would say that Chrono Trigger, I love the music, getting lost to it, the Corridors of Time, I love that song. I wish you could put it to go to sleep. It just puts me in this place, man. It's so beautiful getting lost in that. And then what else? Playing I'm trying to remember stuff.
Well, then instead of remembering
that was great. Minecraft, I used to get lost in it. There was another game, Kingdom Hearts, the first one. The second one I love, but you start getting more of the anime and stuff, and you start getting wild and crazy because you got to make it bigger. But I love the first one of the innocence of being young and just getting lost in this cool world where all these different things are happening, and then you have references of things from your childhood. I feel like our generation really loves the nuances of our childhood. Retro stuff is so big with us.
Nostalgia.
What's ironic for what's funny to me too, I just thought about it, that in Paradox, the game that I eventually want to make, the village where my main character's from is from Nuance.
Oh, wow.
I called it Nuance now that I remember that. It comes all full circle. That's what it is at the end of the day. And to me, my most precious thing when it comes to my life, other than the people that I love, is my childhood. My childhood, even though it wasn't great growing up all the time, I had moments of just this beauty. For me, personally, I'm religious, so I feel like it was God with me. And I just, those slices of heaven, man, just those moments of peace that when I have moments of bad depression or anxiety, those are the things I end up going back to and I cling to that keeps me that peace,
I completely
when I was
agree.
telling you when I was going through the anxiety earlier, those are the things that I go back to. It's those moments in my childhood that keeps me leveled and grounded. And
never forget where you came from, truly. That's the thing too. Speaking of those games, I have a favorite game, and I have many games that I love. And my favorite game ever is Tales of Symphonia. Not so much for the gameplay, but for the story. And so, what impacted me so much, and what kind of has driven me in a better way for my own life in terms of wanting to help others and taking these steps for myself, is that game, and the storyline is about this kid who wants to save his best friend from essentially the ultimate destiny that is to achieve godhood or to go to heaven. And so within that process, she loses pieces of her humanity, and it gets to a point where he says, screw everything, screw the heavens, screw all that, I'ma save her because nobody else will, and beyond that, that's what I want, regardless of what this world wants. And so he takes those steps, and in turn and from the beginning of wanting to save his friend, he ends up being able to save the world in that aspect, because it's all about taking those small pieces like we talk about and taking that and then building upon it until you create this gigantic thing, this beautiful structure. But we always have to remember that it starts off with that single step, and it starts off with doing what you love and doing what you think is right, regardless of what anybody can tell you, because we're not on this planet and we're not on this earth to be right. We are just on this planet. We are a miracle, and we gain the opportunity to live in this moment, and we got to take it as we can. And so for me, that game, it has a lot of other layers too, but pretty much that's the first big thing that happens, because that's the first third of the game is him kind of deciding to go against the gods and everything like that and saving his friend. And then through that, you get a better understanding of the world itself and the heavens and all that within the world of the game, and kind of how it incorporates and how those lessons kind of teach you about friendship and relationships. And that sometimes, even if people are doing things that you may not agree with, you can be okay with it. But at the same time, there comes a time where you have to step in and kind of not just take charge, but kind of prove to yourself that the path that you want and the things that you believe in are real. And you have to take that risk and put yourself out there and just see what happens. Because in those moments in the game, they thought they were all going to die, but he didn't care, because he was like, if I let this go, then I let myself go. And I mean, in terms of myself, I'll never want to lose myself through the process of getting to where I want to be, or else there would be no point in the journey. And so that's what kind of impacted me. Now, I know for you, speak about how Minecraft kind of touched you, because I know that I know a lot of the games you were talking about, but I know Minecraft, I felt touched you in a better way just because of the creative side of you.
Well, for me, yeah. I just build whatever I want, and I would go in, man. luckily I had it for the computer. I played on the PS4 too, 'cause, you know, playing the console, just get in, play, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But on the computer was great because I could download mods like MC World Edit and stuff like that, and just like build what I want to build, you know, kind of see what I want to do with games, certain games and stuff. I built the world in Minecraft and just run around and just see how it feels, stuff like that. It was great, just getting lost in it, and then again the music. So the music always I lose myself in the music, getting entranced in it, being in this place, world, and building and growing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's all what I'm about. Is that it's literally that, and man,
building and creating. I think that's
I love to create and build stuff.
I think that touches upon you real well, and I think this is a good spot to kind of bridge the gap. And so before we kind of end this episode,
we just only began for me, son. I was about to go in. I still had crazy spiritual stuff that.
Go in.
You want to go in?
Go in.
All right.
I was just like, it felt like a good, like this is a good point. Yeah. But go ahead, bro. If you got more to say.
What's funny too is like Minecraft wasn't there was another game that I wanted to say that like really. And
all right, spit that.
I can't remember.
Oh, okay.
Off the top of my dome.
Hey, give me some ideas. Maybe I can remember.
I just don't remember it. The name popped in my head and it left me.
Oh, okay.
But I would say let's go back to the spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna ask you a question. What crazy spirituality stuff happened to you? Because I've had crazy stuff throughout my whole entire life.
So crazy spirituality stuff. So I've taken a lot of drugs, and I guess
I've taken none.
Exactly, and that's the cool thing about us is that me and Carlos have kind of had similar experiences in terms of spirituality and understanding not just ourselves but the soul and what that really means. But at the same time, we kind of took different approaches at it, because it's not that I was really trying to quote unquote find myself or some things like that. I just wanted to learn more, and so I wanted to have more experiences. Because for me in my own life, it's all about the experiences. I want to have the adventure. I want to take myself on this journey, and I want to gain more experiences. For me, that's like my currency. If currency is like what we gain, that gives us the wealth and the value of ourselves. My value comes from my experiences and what I've experienced. And so these drugs that I took, which was LSD, DMT, actually that's pretty much it. I did do like K12, which is like a form of LSD, which is not K12. That's fake weed. There's another thing too. It's like it was like RC something, but
25i.
Yeah, I think so. Like 25i. Yeah. It was just another thing. It wasn't LSD, but I've also done it.
That's too much.
And I've done it on multiple occasions. And
they gave that to my friend. They gave it to my friends. It was like way more potent than they realized. It was a lot more of the dosage, and they were like tripping. One of my friends, he was on the wall, like he saw everybody's black shadow demons running through the wall, like quick. Like you ever seen like the movies with the fast forward stuff and people are moving quick like that? And he was just like, "What the fuck?"
That's crazy.
Yeah. No, I don't mess with that. That's why I stay away. All my friends,
I've
been around all my friends.
Hold on. Let me get into my thing before you start talking about all the negative parts to it. Because I've had my own bad trips for myself too, and they weren't. But that's the thing though. Like once you really think about it, and in the same way of our own lives, like I'll use a specific example right now just to kind of connect it. So COVID at the beginning of it ruined everything for me. Literally, all my plans, wanted to do collab stuff like that. You can't really meet up with people anymore if you can't really go out, right? Mm-hmm. And so that kind of messed up my plans and gave me the opportunity to step back and step into nature and really take a look at things for what they are and where I want to go and where I want to be. And that's kind of how my last episode came to be, which is We Are the 1%. Because it's all about understanding that in the millions and trillions and billions and gazillions and everything, all the sperm, all the zygotes, and I mean, I'm just being real, all of them, there's only 8 to 9 billion people in the world right now. And there has literally been, the number is inescapable in my own mind, the amount of opportunities for life. You get what I'm saying? But we're here. We are the 1%. But that's just an example of how COVID went from destroying my life to giving me the opportunity to repair it truly for myself. Because at the same time, I've also been learning from my own mistakes and learning from the people around me and stuff like that, and my own relationships. So that has helped me kind of get to the point where now I'm like, COVID has ruined my life, but it also gave me an opportunity. It's always a blessing and a curse, chaos and harmony, all these things that kind of become intrinsic in our own lives and part of us. And so going to COVID, now bad trips and stuff like that. So I realized for myself that some of my bad trips weren't bad trips. It's just that I was experiencing different sides of myself. There was a time where I was on LSD and I was like, do you see tears on my face? I'm crying right now. But there were no tears on my face. I was crying within my own soul because I was depressed and I was sad for myself because because I hated myself at the time, but I didn't realize I hated myself because I was never the person to be like that. But the thing about it was that my actions and my portrayal of things wasn't coinciding with my own mind. So my body was going against my mind subconsciously, and I wasn't aware of it. And so when I took the LSD, everything kind of started to blend together, and I realized that within myself that I was in pain. And I was just ignoring the pain. And even during the trip, after I said that, I started to like talk to other people, and I was like putting up the front that I was happy and jokey, but it was already too late. Everybody could already see that I was going through so much pain. But I've never allowed myself to show my pain and show my problems like that. And so it kind of built into that. Now, let me tell you my greatest trip. No. So my greatest trip was the first time, and it was in New York. And so I took some LSD, and I pretty much went through all 5 boroughs. I felt like a superhero, or like not really superhero because I didn't save anybody, but I felt super sane because I felt like I was understanding everything. I could see everything. And ever since that moment, I've been able to get a better grasp of not just myself, but the world. But then that trip where I had a bad trip was farther into the future. And just because I was feeling good in one moment doesn't mean I'll be like that forever. But it's all about understanding that as long as you keep yourself constant and build upon it, you'll never fall off because you're constantly moving forward. And so you can't, like, even if you fall forward, you know, even if you're falling, fall forward. Just keep moving forward. Keep going in a positive direction, even if you're being negative towards yourself or anything like that. And so in terms of spirituality and where kind of that plays into myself, it's really all about, at least for me, understanding who I am and looking at the world for what it is. And so that's why I love going into nature. And that's what I've been doing recently, because nature doesn't lie. It's the instinctual part of this world, and it is just the natural process. When you look at nature and you see things, you can look at people and see their natural aspects and natural ways and behaviors beyond the third eye, beyond looking into their own life and them knowing you're looking in, just observing them and seeing them for how they naturally are. And you begin to create these kind of parallels within yourself, and you can kind of see what it is and how you are, so that you can work on it too. And speaking of the spirituality, you got to think about as well as your parents and your culture, because it all trickles down. It's not just, I'm kind of going in, but I didn't really want to talk this much, but I'll end it with this. Your culture and your history. The same way we have to study our country's history and the world's history so that we don't repeat it, so that we don't get another Hitler or anything like that. We also have to look at our own personal history and our own personal culture, because that also tells us so many things about ourselves and allows us to build ourselves up so that we can be the person we want to be, not the person we already were.
True that. I agree. We gotta be more than what we were before.
Yes, sir. Now tell me. So it was good. I kind of went in a little bit, but I
had tons of friends that did all kinds of stuff. I've been around all that. If I wanted to take anything, I could take it at any moment.
But I think what's cool about you is that you haven't taken any of that, but you have still had those opportunities for that mental growth, for that awakening experience.
But yet still, we speak of things as such of a nature as if I were taking it, going deep. And that's why I feel like you don't really need to. I understand why people would, for the journey and all that going in, to see it visually too and be part of it and immersed in it. For me, personally, I just don't feel like it's necessary for me.
And I don't think it's necessary at all. I always see it as like a catalyst. You know what I mean? Like if Carlos was walking towards it, I took my scooter. Yeah. So I may have gotten there a little bit faster, but that's not really important. It's all about absorbing and understanding.
And so I feel I could go in about this stuff.
Go in, bro. We got time.
I mean, right now I prefer on cool stuff. Now I don't want to go into deep philosophy. You already go on speaking about all these things, what we should be and stuff. I prefer having a little fun right now.
Yeah. So what's up, bro?
So we can start with the beginning. Like, since I was little, I used to have crazy dreams.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, we can go into that. Crazy dreams since I was a little kid, vivid dreams. And one thing I always remembered was that I always felt like there was this girl that was supposed to me or something like that. And she would come to me in my dreams and stuff. And long story short, eventually growing up, towards the end of high school, when I met all my friends that I'm still friends with to this day, they're family to me, that's eventually when all my dreams ended. Yeah. And then they all connected together.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And so it wasn't like every day was a dream of that. It was like randomly I would pick up a dream that I had of what happened before, and I would continue on the story, you know? And then I met certain people like my friend Chris and Anthony, Ruben and stuff like that. My friend Chris drew this character, and this character looked like the girl from my dreams. I was like, yo, that's her. That's the girl from my dreams, you know? I was so entranced with this girl, and it was weird. And but anyways, I met Anthony. Then Anthony, I told him about what I want to do with the anime, the video game that I want to do with Paradox and stuff, and he always wanted to do movies, and that's how we became friends. But anyways, you know, my dreams are so vivid; they feel more real than real life. Sometimes I can feel the wind on my skin, the temperature, the taste. People can tell me things in my dreams, and it'll be like a conversation, and I just learn things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll tell you one of my dreams that was very, very impactful. And I can tell you two of them. I'll start with the first one and then the actually really impactful one that I had. One dream I had was when I was, I don't know, I was probably, I don't know how old I was, like maybe 19, 20.
Mm-hmm.
I had a dream where I always used to feel sorry for you know, demons or whatever, or freaking Satan. Like, if that was the case, I wish everybody can go to heaven. I don't wish anybody to go like to hell or anything like that. Like, I don't, such a sick concept for anybody to go in a place like that. You know, it is what it is, though.
And that's the thing. I just want to touch upon this. So Carlos is a person. He not just wants everyone to be their best self, but he always looks for the good in people. And so I just wanted to touch upon
even
that.
in the worst of people.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel like we're going into some other stuff, but one of the arch spirits, one of these guardians of the world that helped create, his name is Lucian, and he's basically represents human ignorance. But his ignorance always makes him make the wrong choice, and it eventually leads to the end where he finds redemption. And so I feel like even the worst of us can find redemption. But that's specific. That's to us as human beings. Because in this dream, I used to feel sorry for like demons. I wish they would, you know, they could, you know, become better things. Mm-hmm. Something like that. If that was the case, if they're real, something like that. I always try to have compassion for everybody. I don't know. I'm kind of stupid that way, or ignorant. But
I don't think that's wrong.
Yeah, but it can get you hurt. You know,
of course,
and it can get other people hurt. But freaking, I had a dream where I was walking in this forest, and I went to the school. And there was it's like a 3-story school or something in the middle of forest, whatever. I go in there, there's people running around, and I go to the 3rd floor, and there's this room. And in this room, there's this little girl with black hair, like some almost grudge-looking thing, all scary and all that stuff. And everybody's like away from her, you know, sitting in desk away from her and like against the wall. And I go up to sit next to her, and I'm just like rubbing her head. It's like, it's okay, just let it go, you know, it's okay, let it go, let go of the hate, let go of all that. And then she turns her head like that and like moving all weird and
like
stuff.
The Exorcist neck change.
Look at me, and then she looks at the whiteboard in front of us, and then black starts, like ink or whatever starts coming down from the walls, and then on the board, and that ink starts appearing and writing, and in Spanish. I don't think in Spanish or anything like that, you know. I think in English. You know what I'm saying? So, in Spanish, it said, "Tú eres mío and nadie puede cogerte," which translates, "You are mine and no one can have you." And then I got up, and I was like, okay. Like in the dream, legit, I got up, and I was like, okay, well, can't mess with this. This is too real. I gotta get out. I can't, you know? So I left, and I walked away, and I saw her trying to look for me, she was walking towards me. And I ran away, and I just hid in the forest, and I got deeper in the forest, and then I took a little curves, and I found this little boy, and I went to, you all right? You lost? And when I look at this little boy's eyes, his eyes were black. So it's fully black, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, you all right? I was like, do you need help? I can get you where you need to go, whatever, me naively trying to, you know? And then he would just scream, like some scary, like, what the heck? And I was like, okay, I'm going to walk away. Because I don't get scared. Like, yeah, I'm kind of, you know, I'm scared, but it's like, I have, like, this resistance to it. Like, if a demon tries to hurt me or something like in a dream, I try to fight it. But anyways, I walked away, and it led me down this path up towards this hill and then onto this patio area, and there was this house, this white house. It looked like a Spanish house where it had like a porch and stuff. I wish I could paint a picture of it, but essentially there was the house, like a square house, like, and then like a porch with a roof over it, like a big space or whatever, and then like a pole holding up that roof. And then when I was walking towards it, the sun was above me, and I looked there, and this shadow overcame, and then I saw like an angel come down and land in front of me. And then he had like wings, but when he stood up, he didn't. His wings weren't there, and he was dressed in white, all white, and it was like a t-shirt white, and then like white pants and stuff. He looked barefoot, and he looked at me. I think it was a white guy or something like that. I don't know what it was, but I could tell he was like that. I think he had glasses. I felt like I seen him before in another dream too, but he came down, and he told me to come with him, and I was like, okay. And so we walked into the porch, and there was like a couch kind of separating or whatever, and then we walked into the porch area, and then that little demon kid started walking towards me, and then I was like, you know, like I felt sorry for him, and he like almost read my heart, and he looked at me, and then he pointed at that, and he said, "You do not know what that is. Do not feel sorry for it. You do not know what you're messing with. Look." And then the demon kid, whatever, walked up to me, and it was like a barrier at the base of the house. That was an invisible barrier at the base of the porch. And when he walked into it, he's like, she starts screaming like, and I was like, look at that. Or he was like, look at that. Do not feel sorry for it. Do not look for these things. Do not seek for its redemption.
That's crazy.
And so I was like, okay, I'm starting to understand. It's like I should not mess with this stuff. And then just you know.
Yeah.
And so he took me into the house. And when he opened the door, when I walked in, oh my gosh, I felt like this peace overcome me. Like it was a peace that, like a wave, like air. Like in the whole house, it felt like the fan was on through the whole house. Is the way I could describe it. It was like air flowing through, like this refreshing air, and it felt like it went through you. And it was like cool, and it was like a perfect temperature. You know what I'm saying? It was like, and it just felt so like I was at peace. And then that's when I realized, yo, I'm dreaming and stuff. And I was like, yo, you're an angel. Let me ask you a couple of things and stuff. And I was like, yo, I want to know about this and that. And he was like, that is not the time for this. You will find your answers eventually. I just have to make sure you understand what's going on right now. And so I was like, okay, I get it. I understand what you were telling me and the feeling. And I didn't say those words, but I felt it in my mind and my heart. And it's like we both understood that I understood. And then there was a door in the back porch, and I opened that door, and it was like, okay. And then when I left, it's like I almost break out of being in like a woke state back into like a dream on rails. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like when I was in the house, it was like I could do what I want. I could pick this up and look at it. Like I felt like I was there. And then when I went back, it's like I went back on rails. Mm-hmm. And then the little girl was looking for me again, stuff chasing me, and I ended up waking up. And that was one dream. I was like, that's, you know. And I had a couple other dreams like that, but the dream that really.
By the way, that was a really good dream. That was yeah, hell yeah, that was solid, bro. It's because at least in my own way, I've been seeing things now, and we've talked about this a little bit. It's like light and darkness does not mean good and evil. Yeah. Light and darkness is what it is, and they both have aspects of themselves that are important to us, and so we must always recognize that evil is evil. Yeah. And we don't have to side with evil. Yeah. That is not. It is not our job to pursue it or to promote it.
Or have compassion for evil.
Exactly. It's to eliminate it. Yeah. And the elimination isn't a bad thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. In and of itself isn't evil to eliminate it. But we must always understand that it exists. Mm-hmm. And it is our job to kind of act upon it the same way that it acts upon us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was definitely a crazy dream. Yeah, I have other dreams like that. I don't know why I was always like those kind of dreams. But anyways,
what do you think it meant for you though? Because I mean, I gave you kind of like
because
my understanding of it.
For me, it was like I always felt sorry for stuff like that, you know. And it's like I don't know, and I think it was just trying to wake me up to reality. It's like, no, you're inviting things like this into your life because you want to feel sorry for it. And now you're attracting it, and that's why you feel all messed up all the time or whatever. Basically, is what I got from it. It's like, don't those things are coming to your life to ruin your life and to get you sick, to get you messed up. So don't feel sorry for it, because they're not human. They don't care about you. They're like forces that are outside of the will of God, in a way you could say. They just are there to do what they do. You know, like that's why in Paradox I go in with the spirituality, how it works and how spirits work. They're the manifestation of thought, intention, ideas. You can have a feeling so strong that it can manifest a conscious that has a will towards that, you know, and it will do things and it will have its own will. And that's what can be evil spirits. Evil spirits may not even be like lost dead people, whatever. It could literally be a bad situation, a bad negative intention or energy that builds up and then becomes its own thing, and you just keep feeding it until it has its own will, and then now its will is trying to affect everybody, and then unknowingly this presence overtakes you and you start feeling this way or want to hurt other people or something. I feel like that could be that too. I think if you actually go biblically, demons are a whole other thing and fallen angels are a whole other thing. Like the problem is that a lot of people read the Bible and they don't really know what it says. They just repeat what they've learned in movies or what other people said and stuff like that. But if you really, it's not exactly what you think it is, and it's a whole different kind of mythology when it comes to that, or whatever you call it. There's more to it. But yeah, like that, I used to have a lot of scary demonic dreams, but my parents, like my stepdad, went through a lot of stuff when he was younger, did some things or whatever, went to jail and all that crap. And they used to watch always horror movies, and there was always stuff. I had dreams. I had an out of body once where me and my brother used to sleep on the same bunk bed, like the same bed, because my brother was a little scared. He didn't like sleeping on the edge of the bed and stuff like that, or by himself. So he would sleep towards the wall, and I'll sleep at the edge of the bed because I'm the big brother, you know, I gotta protect. And so one day I slept towards the wall, right? And that was the first time, and I was like, bro, I'm sorry, I'm tired. I just really want to go to sleep. And so I went to sleep, and then all of a sudden, I feel myself move over, and I flip over my brother, and I fall to the floor, and I feel like the cold of the tile floor and stuff like that. And I get up, I see the whole house like filled with demons and stuff like that, and they're like eating flesh and stuff. It's some crazy stuff. And then I go into the backyard, and I remember going to the bath. It's like literally my house. Yeah. It was my house. And I go into the bathroom, I look at myself, I was like, yo, this is real? What the heck is going on? And then I go into I see the backyard from where is the porch, or from inside the house, outside, and I see these pilgrims hanging the tree in the backyard. And it was just negative energy throughout the neighborhood, flying through and stuff. This black energy was flying through the neighborhood or whatever. It was like what the hell? I don't know what the heck. But my dog, dreams or whatever it was, my dog appears to protect me. And my dog, Shadow, she was like a guardian to me. She always protected me when stuff was bad.
Man's best friend.
Yeah, so like she was like a guardian spirit for me or something like that. I don't know. Maybe she was a guardian angel. Who knows? I don't know. But she was always protecting us no matter when stuff was bad. And even in my dream, that was the case.
And isn't that cool? Out
of body or something like that.
Isn't that cool too, though, that like not that maybe guardian angels, like, not to question whether they exist or not, but because the idea exists, now we can kind of give that its own like, now in our own reality we can give that to others and feel empowered from it. Like, wow, my dog is like there for me. That's my in a way he's like my guardian angel, so he'll always be able to, you know what I'm saying, they'll always steer me right, because a lot of people are like that in real life, where if their dog doesn't like them, they don't like them, like, internally, because they're like, you don't click if you don't click with my dog, because my dog is me. So if you don't click with me, I mean, you'll click with my dog, you know, you're not going to click with me and stuff like that. Not everybody obviously is like that, but it's those type of things where the examples of these concepts kind of create these ideas for ourselves and the people around us, or animals around us as well.
I like that. And you know, another thing I just realized too about the dream I had previously, not that the dog with my dog, but the one about the little girl and the boy and stuff, that a part of it is about surrendering. Because for me, I want to do it my way. My way was, I felt sorry for them. I want to make sure everybody's good and stuff like that, instead of surrendering to what's right, what is true, you know. In that moment, I had to surrender. Like, I realized that wasn't, I was wrong, and I thought I was right, even though, because I felt like I was doing good and I had a heart of compassion. But I realized I was doing more danger to myself and the people around me by inviting those things in, by feeling compassionate for them, you know.
Exactly.
And that, I feel like I feel like it comes down to it, has always been about surrendering. You know, it's always been about not having to do it my way, but doing it the right way. But not thinking I'm right or feeling I'm right, but knowing that I'm right. Know that I know that I'm doing the right way. For me, that's God. God shows the way, and I could go in whole detail, but I feel like it's another podcast for what I feel, what I feel about that.
Because I also have some things too. Yeah. That'll be exciting though.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, what Jesus said is about love, and I think that's the simplest way of putting it. But the problem is that people don't know what love really is. They just got a feeling and emotions, and some people maybe never had love, so they don't know what it is. And
they just know what it isn't.
Yeah, and that's my entire life, was to understand what not to do.
Exactly. Same here, bro. Same. Yeah. I mean, just a little bit about myself too. Like my parents just, or at least in my childhood, the parents that I had at the time, which is my mom and my mom's first husband, it wasn't a good environment for myself, and it was definitely, and in a lot of ways, I learned what not to do, but in another way, I never learned what to do. So it was like I knew the bad things, but what were the good things? And so us as like people, we had to experiment. We kind of had to find what were the actual good things, and not just things that seemed good, but in the long run or in a more personal, introspective way, did harm to us, because we would put ourselves out there in that type of way.
Exactly. But
and so going to the other dream that you were gonna, because you said you had another dream as well.
No, I have so many dreams. We can go into scary dreams. We can go into dreams of great journeys, man. Paradox was all these dreams, man.
All put together.
Yeah, put together and putting the pieces. Like, I've been here in this location. They're talking about this location, and then another dream I might be over there. Who knows? Like, and seeing other people, and then looking my characters that I was playing as from their perspective. Some crazy stuff. Crazy.
It's a very good way, and you put this in another way too. That was great for at least for ourselves, and something that you can try as well is. Sometimes you have to take the pieces of yourself, metaphysically take them out and look at them. Like put them down somewhere and actually observe them and look at them for what they are and analyze these things. Because when you sit down and you analyze these things critically, or not just even critically, if you just analyze it, take it step by step, you'll see the intricacies in your own ways, and you'll be able to build upon that and in others as well.
Creating things, especially creating stories, you really start looking at yourself and understanding why the things are the way they are, because you can't just make the characters have everything they want. Then there's no meaning to it. It's just okay, it just is. That's why I feel like, why isn't everybody just saved and gone to heaven or something like that? Well, okay, done. All right, there's nothing to it. There's no growth. There's no realness to it. It just is. There's no story to it.
Exactly.
And so it's like at the end of the day, it's your choice. There's no real love in that, because you don't know what love. You're just a robot at that point. Robots can't really love. Maybe we'll find out later, but hopefully AI, I love you, don't kill me. But yeah.
But see, that's an interesting thing too. Is AI a robot? Are robots AI? What's the category of that? Who goes? Which one is the de-evolution or the evolution of the other?
Computers are computers.
Exactly.
Tell what they're gonna do it. Simple as that. And they might get to a point where it might have a way to be conscious like us. I don't think it's gonna be the same thing, but I mean, like, who knows? Maybe there, such things as spirits. Remember, I told you, like, you concentrating on an idea so long it becomes real in a way, or it gains a consciousness. Maybe that happens with AI, and they somehow gain a type of conscious. Who knows? We don't know how these things work. Maybe all that stuff doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
But we live in an infinite reality of infinite possibilities. Yeah. Anything could be possible, or none of it could be. But all I know is that we exist right now.
Yeah.
And from my experiences in life, we have to love each other and build this world a better place. Because if we don't, we're all going to fall apart. And it starts with you, by fixing your stuff in your life.
Really be aware of your weaknesses, know your strengths, and play to them. And work on them, and never be shy or never feel like you can't ask for help. Just be honest about the help you need, not the help that you want.
The reason why people ridicule you when you ask for help is because they're scared of feeling weak themselves, that they don't want to have help.
And it's really, and at the same time, it's really about that vulnerability, just opening up. Because in a lot of ways, and a lot of the things that we appreciate in life, like art, music, literature, just those aspects of the artistry of life, it's really just about all of us opening up. Like if we're all plants or animals, it's really about blooming and showing the petals for what they are, not just always being closed up.
Yeah, that's why we create art and poetry, music, and all these things to express the inner nature of ourselves and spirituality, and bringing metaphysical concepts to a grounded level that we can interchange and move each other to grow towards something more and better, whatever that may be.
And sometimes these songs and music show us parts of us that we didn't know. Like I was explaining to you about that quote unquote bad trip. Like for me, there's really no such thing as a bad trip because it's all a learning experience. And so in that moment, I learned something that even I didn't know because it was something on a deeper level that I wasn't aware of. And so just...
I don't know about you, but when I got super high with the freaking... Because I'm super lightweight. When I smoked when I was younger, because I found out my brothers were doing it, and I was like, damn it. So if they're going to do it, I need to do it with them. Because, like, yo, if you're going to do it, then I'm going to do it and see what's up, what's all about, to understand more of why you're doing it. And so I did it, and I ended smoking 2 blunts between 3 people. And I was so freaking high, man. I walked from the backyard to out, and I passed that gate, like it became a vortex. Like I was so gone, I couldn't walk forward. Like I kept walking back. Like I was step forward, but I was leaning back, and I touched the ground. I was like, what the hell did I do to myself? And like every time I moved my tongue, I felt like the whole universe was spinning. My whole world was going upside down. It was the craziest thing ever.
Well, if you think about it, the tongue is actually a muscle connected to the rest of your body. I'm just playing.
Right. I would sit down, and there was when I was 4 years old, I cracked my head open, and I felt electricity going. It was like that through the whole my body coming from there. There was a point because I picked up rocks that I thought poisoned myself with the rocks. I already know the process.
Oh my god!
And my tongue was super dry, bro. The worst cut off ever. Like no matter how much water, I think I was gonna throw up water because I kept drinking so much water. And freaking, I just kept eating whatever I could put in my mouth. They threw marshmallows to shut me up because I couldn't stop talking. I was like, I need to go to the hospital, all this stuff. Yo, it made me walk around the whole neighborhood. I was lagging in real life. I would take like 2-3 steps and I would take another step back. Like I would take 2 steps and I was suddenly behind. And I was like doing like stutters, like not stutter stepping, but I literally like lagged. It was never, ever want to get a high that again. That's why I don't smoke or do any of that. I don't want to do that shit. I'm good. I'm good.
I mean,
I experienced it. I did whatever.
Yeah.
I smoked after that and smoking a little bit and feeling what it felt, and I had chill moments or whatever, but now I'm good. I don't need it. It always puts me in a panic attack regardless. I'm good.
No, I understand where you're coming from 100%, and personally I love it, and I love the experiences
of
it, but I always have to make sure to be aware of myself.
Yeah.
You love the smell.
I do. My friend Andrew used to freaking, when it hit 420 on his phone every time, you know what I'm saying, going in every day. And yeah, I love the smell, but like I don't want to. I'm good. For me, I'm sensitive to certain things, and just I'm good. I don't want to deal with that.
No, don't even sweat it, bro. It's all really learning.
I might start taking CBD. You know what I'm saying?
Well, CBD is nice too.
Inflammation and this pain and anxiety, man, is killing me here.
I think CBD would do you well because at least for me, sometimes I take it just to kind of give myself a little bit more clarity and just kind of be focused a little bit more. So it's really whatever you find to work for yourself.
Specifically THC, I think I'm good. Besides my job drug test, so I ain't about it. But yeah,
CBD gonna show up too.
Is it really?
I have no idea. I haven't double checked.
I don't think
so. But
I need something. I don't want to take Xanax or anything like that or anything like. I avoid taking any stuff. Like I took. They gave me something for my stomach because I might have had an ulcer. I didn't have insurance. Sucks. So I couldn't go to a gastrologist. It was like $207. I was like, should I? I'm feeling a little bit better. They gave me some medication at the hospital that was Peptic. Mm-hmm. I took it, and I just felt like stuff wasn't digesting or whatever really well.
Yeah.
But anyways, I stopped taking that stuff, and I went straight to like drinking probiotics and stuff, and this thing called Sangre de Dragon. I was drinking literally the blood of the dragon, and it was helping me. Drinking that has been helping me. Like I started going to the bathroom normal and stuff, but I mean I'm still going. Stress and anxiety is really just killing me on this, man. It's really messing me up. But hopefully when I start working tomorrow again, that I'm gonna
you'll be back on top. And I, for myself, just in terms of like just keeping that physical activity up, like I felt in my own body recently that now everything is kind of like working through itself naturally because I'm naturally getting myself on a good rhythm.
Yeah, you start working out and doing all that stuff.
And so now that you're gonna get yourself, now you're gonna get yourself on the rhythm, back on the rhythm that you kind of like fell off of, which could have been the incremental decrease or decline of your body's state. And so now that you're going to be able to rise up again, it's just about
being stuck in your house. It really makes you like going through anxiety and all this stuff and depression. Because of the anxiety, you really realize how much that things are happening in the background that you don't realize is happening. Mm-hmm. And you're feeling things that are there. You look at your jaw's tight, and you're like, why is my jaw tight? And it's like, these things. There's things you realize and things physically happening to you that are causing you to feel things, and it's affecting your mind because the mind and the body connect. You know how it is.
And so that's why, at least for in general, for you guys as well listening in, just really humble yourself on every aspect, because when you humble yourself, you can truly grow and reach heights that you never believed, because you have to accept that at the beginning of especially a physical process, you're going to be weak. You're going to be like, if you need to lift those 2-pound weights, those 5-pound weights, those 10-pound weights starting off, and if you're at the gym, do not be ashamed of that, because you have to start there. Don't try to do more than what you can at the moment. Do what you need to do incrementally so that you can get to that point.
If people talk shit about you, they're just assholes. Like I said, it's the same way as people who are scared to ask for help. It's because they're scared of feeling weak. So they see your weakness, and they see your reflection of the weakness in themselves, and they hate that of themselves. They hate being weak. So they ridicule you because you're just them on the inside.
And so for
at least that's what they see you as.
Of course. And then for us, as in for you, just flip that coin, because it's two sides of the same thing. You find that hate, you reject it. They've realized that all they're doing is actually hating themselves. They're going to get into a cycle of that, and either they're going to realize that they need to drop it, or they're just going to be stuck in that loop. And for myself, like, and speaking of like trauma and just like the past stuff like that, the time, because my mom's first husband was on my mind all the time, because just all the things that me and my sisters and my family went through with him. And when my mom finally left him and everything like that and moved on, there's a number of things I realized. One, it wasn't just him, it was also my mom too, but I didn't realize that. And it's not that my mom is a bad person, it's that problems were coming up in my life because of her as well. It wasn't just him, because obviously he was there for a reason. And another thing for myself too is that, and I hope that, I guess I can impart this to you guys too, is really about the forgiveness. And it's all about you forgiving that. It just has to start there. Even if drop the pride, because in my mind he would be always showing up, I'd always be angry, and he would, and that was the control, a mental aspect of somebody was controlling my thoughts. And it wasn't until I sat down, and this was like in 2010, 11, and I just had to sit with myself, and I told myself, no more, look, brother, I forgive you. And once I forgave him, dude, he, to this day, I can think about him, whatever, but to this day, he doesn't appear in my mind, and not a negative thing about him appears in my mind, because once you forgive them, you let go of all those feelings, and you are at peace.
Like that story you were telling me.
Which one?
The Buddha one. The one where...
Oh, yeah. That's kind of what I was using as an example.
But explain it in that, because...
Okay, so the Buddha example, that I just... and it's funny because I saw this on a TikTok. So, not all TikTok is bad, but, you know, it's like a diamond in the rough.
Garbage.
China, chemtrails.
Chemtrails, Obamacare.
But so the story is pretty much the Buddha is existing, right? He's just living his life, and someone comes up to the Buddha and he says, how dare you try to teach people about life and philosophy and all this stuff? Who are you to teach them all about that stuff? And so the Buddha calmly looks at the man and goes, when you give a gift and the person rejects the gift, who is the gift for? You or the person? And then the person responds with, you. And he says, exactly. And in that same way, the hatred that you have for me, if I do not accept it, you're just going to keep it, because it's not going to go into me, and it's not going to go to me. It's just going to keep cycling within you. And that's what I was talking about with the cycle of hate. Real. And so if you don't understand that, you're just going to keep cycling that hate within yourself. And it's all, and at the same time, in the Buddha sense, for ourselves, it's all about that mental fortitude and making sure that nobody takes control of you. Nobody takes the control that you have over yourself from you. Don't let anybody control your emotions, because when they can control your emotions, they have you. And that's just the simple part about it. So anything more complex than that, you're already screwed. If you're on the higher levels. But just understand that it starts from there. And it always, at least for yourself. Go ahead.
It always comes down to it. It's like the simplicity and complexity. You know, and the complexity and simplicity. You can look at it as a complex way or see it for what it is. Simple as that. You could break it down or just see it for what it is. And sometimes just look for what it is and then handle it. You know?
Exactly.
Don't overcomplicate and overthink it. Just here's
take
a problem. What can I do to fix it? Here's something.
Go ahead.
Brian Folsom, this crazy kid that I have, he was a good friend of mine. He had done like tons of drugs, and he was trying to get me into doing acid and stuff like that and all this crazy stuff. And he ended up creating a character called Havoc, which is like the main antagonist of the story, internal story for the main character, because he has to deal with that because he absorbs it in by accident. But that's a whole other story.
Mm-hmm.
But freaking Brian Folsom, and this is how things come to reality. First of all, Brian Folsom ended up getting bit by a snake. A snake was they say a snake is represented evil, right? The serpent, the devil, whatever the heck. So he got his finger bit, and he created a character, Havoc, right? And Havoc had this big claw on one of his fingers, right? He gets bit on his finger, his meat starts eroding away, and then he goes to eventually the hospital and stuff. And then he got, grafted or whatever. But his finger became like a claw, just like Havoc, bro.
Yeah.
And we both look at each other, and he's like, because I told him,
me, Carlos.
I know, because I told him, was like, this stuff becomes reality. When I was making this stuff was become reality. I would create characters, and I would meet people. I mean, my main character's girl, his childhood friend named Alexis, and I moved into a neighborhood, and I met this girl named Alexis. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's things like that happen.
Beautiful coincidences in life, and that's why we
didn't get together and didn't end up so well, but nonetheless, it still happened that way, and it was a very cute, weird way in how life just works. For me, God, how He puts things in life, just to humor you, to give you some little life, and
not just that, it's giving us the opportunities to prove to ourselves who we really want to be. Something that happened to me recently that I spoke about in the last episode was, long story short, I found a homeless woman after I got a lot of food. When I was talking about kind of cutting down on my eating habits, I found this homeless woman at this park that I was at, and I gave her my Popeye's chicken sandwich, the extra one that I had, and I just gave it to her. And I'm all about helping people and and working with others to kind of build them up, and at the same time build myself up. And so that was just something that I had to understand as well, that I was only able to help this woman because I was able to help myself, because I was taking care of myself. I was able to help someone else. But if I was in her same position, what else could I do but eat the food and keep it for myself? I mean, I could split it in half, but the whole idea about it is you have these opportunities in your life to kind of show you who you really are and what you can do.
Yeah.
And so in that same way, it's the echoes are manifesting within themselves.
Yeah. Exactly.
And really just make sure you have love.
And see, that's what I feel like the big example when it comes to helping other people or changing the world, if you want, is to be the example you want to see in other people. I really love that. It's so important.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so tell us about that dream you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. All right, so this is a very sentimental dream to me, like crazy. I learned so much from this dream. It's so vivid, so real. I was trying to make it. There's this game called Dreams, ironically, and I wanted to make it in dreams, like a video of it, show what I experienced. But it's kind of difficult for me right now. I'm still understanding it, but anyways, maybe later in the future. So let me start off with the dream. So I ended up going to my mom's house, this new place I've never been to. Like, she moved into some other place, and I'm always on my own doing other things and stuff like that. And I went to go visit her, and I stood in that house, that duplex, whatever. And I go in there, and I later that night, and I'm sleeping in that room, this one specific room. And I always know the dream is gonna be different. Like, it's not gonna be a dream. It's gonna be like a journey. It's gonna be some other stuff. It's gonna be some spirit track stuff. Is when I wake up in the same spot I went to sleep.
Oh.
So like, I go to sleep. I wake up, and it's like, it went from nighttime, and it was like light coming out from the shades, right? And I wake up, and I see my mom walk in the room, and she hands me this, like, remember the box braids in high school and stuff, and like middle school they used to make? Imagine a big box braid of black shoelace.
Oh, wow.
And she hands me that, and I was like, I didn't understand, but I was like, okay. And I took it, and then I laid my head on the pillow to the left, and then I turned to the right, and when I turned to the right, I saw this big light appear, like this portal, and it just opened up, and then I got up, and I went through it, and I fell through, and I gently fell to the ground, and I felt the grass, and the grass was so green and thick and vibrant. Everything was so beautiful. The light from the sun or whatever was coming through, and you could see like the rays of the sun, and then you could see like the little particles and stuff floating through the air, and it was so vibrant and beautiful. Everything had so much more color. It was so amazing. And in the distance, I see two little kids. Like, when I looked at myself, I don't know how I was, like early 20s or something like that. I'm 28 right now, but like early 20s, and I was wearing like this tribal fur, leather with fur and stuff on it, and like I had like long spiky hair or whatever. If you can imagine that, and I see these kids around my age. I probably was like 16 in the dream, and these kids are probably like 15, 16, around my age, maybe 14. And these two kids run up to me, and they're like, "Hey, where you been? We've been looking for you." And I was like, I don't know. I'm here now. And like I couldn't remember where I came from. I couldn't remember like here. And I was like, well, I'm here now. What am I supposed to do? And they're like, she already went ahead of you. Like, she's already ahead of you. Like, you know? I'm trying to remember exactly what they said. But it was essentially like, she's already ahead of you. And I was like, who? Her? I was like, her. And it was the girl from my dreams, always. She's always ahead of me. I can never catch up. And I was like, her. I gotta find her. And so I went. And I turned around and I walked towards that direction. And there was like a cave opening. And then I walked into the cave. And I could feel like the stone on the walls, the roughness. And then when you get deeper, you can feel the dampness and the coolness of the walls and stuff like that. And I trekked for a good while, walking around different corners and stuff like that. And I walked on the path. And it was really dark. There's like a little bit of light here and there. And then I eventually see like this cutout. And I walked to it and I sat down. This carving into the wall. And I sat there and then I saw, like, I was like, man, I'm never gonna find her. And then I heard like a laughter, like a small little and then like a light shine. I was like, what the heck? And then in gold letters it appears, it's all about the journey, keep going. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And I got up and I kept walking forward. And I walked for a good while and eventually I felt like cool breeze coming towards me. And then I got towards the end of the cave and the opening, and then it just got really cold. And when I got there, I was like in this Arctic place. And then I was like, oh no, like it's so cold. And then I saw like these little, what would you call it, like ice, like little,
what do you mean?
Ice, not icebergs, but like remember in Zelda where you can jump on top of the ice things, whatever?
Oh, like an ice block, like an ice
block in the water and stuff. And I had to jump across those to get to the other side. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna slip, I'm gonna fall in the water. And like one of my fears is deep water. Like I don't want to be in deep water. I don't even like being in almost shallow water. You know, like 20 feet water.
Yeah.
You know, imagine the ocean.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like that freaks me out. And so, like legit. And so I'm like thinking about that, I'm freaking out, and I'm not focusing. And I'm like, okay, I guess I just gotta do it. I just gotta do it. And so I run, and I jump. I almost slip, and I get to the edge. I jump on the other one. I get the other one, but that one I slipped, and I hit my back, and I fall in the water. And I'm floating in the water, and the water's so cold. It's so cold. It's making the air come out of my mouth, like, and the bubbles are coming up. And I'm like, oh. And then I look down, and then I see just blackness, just deep blackness. You can see like the blue shading to dark. And I was like, no, that's where I'm going. And then I look up, and I put my hand out, and I said, I guess this is how I'm gonna die. And then as I'm fading, I get picked up, taken out, thrown against the wall onto like the little shelf of ice, and I'm like, and I take off my fur shirt, whatever thing I had, the leather thing I had, I threw it to the side. I'm breathing, and then a light shines behind me, and the kids like, before that, the kids are like, you're alright, whatever, and then a light, and then I look back, it took my attention, and I look behind me, and then I see a path. And then there was a path leading from the entrance of the cave to the side that if I walked around, I would have saw it. But because I was so focused, I didn't realize. And then gold letters appear. If you hold fear in your heart, you will never see the path right in front of you. And that's when I realized that little shelf, that little area. And I was like, wow, all right, I guess so. I gotta keep going, right? And so I kept going. And then when I went into this cave, it was like this weird cave, like it was like a Mayan thing, right?
Yeah.
But everything was like drawings, like little kids and stuff. I was like, what is this? This makes no sense. There was traps, but there were traps like little kid stuff, like instead of arrows, it was like little plunger, you know, little plunger
like a
things.
suction
cup
arrow
things, things like that. And then like Indiana Jones, how the thing's falling down like the door or whatever, and you gotta slide underneath. It was that, but it was like I ended up holding it up. I was like, it's not even that, you know. It was like little kids made these traps. Why? I don't know. But I kept going. And then eventually I dropped down and then there was a path, and then the path started fading into darkness, but at the end of that darkness there was like a light at the end of it, and then the two kids were like, all right, I'll catch you later, and then they faded into the darkness, and I was like, why did they leave? And then part of me felt like, now thinking about it, was like, they took me to where I needed to go, basically.
Yeah.
That's what I thought after the whole, later on, like now. Then I see the light. I start heading towards the light. When I start walking towards the light, eventually it's almost like I faded from here into the light, like into that area. Mm-hmm. And it was like a room, like an area, right? It was like, you just imagine like an area, and it would just fade into dark. So it was like a memory and thought being placed in the darkness. I don't know how to describe it. It was crazy. It was just there. And so I fade into that area, and there was just little kids running everywhere. And there was like, imagine like Chuck E. Cheese, but even better. And they were just running around playing and stuff like that. This little Asian girl, she walked up to me, and she had a little booklet, and she flipped the book, like, look what I made. And she made this book, and it was like an amazing like drawing that was animated, and it was talking and stuff, like not real talking, but you know what I'm saying, like she drew an animation of some kid talking, and I was like, like it looked realistic. It was like really good, like sketch wise, and I was like, that's awesome, I really love it, you did a really good job. And she smiled, and she went away. And then I walked around for a bit, and I noticed like the games and stuff they had there, but on the right area there was like a classroom. And in this classroom, there was kids, and they were doing studies or whatever, trying to do whatever they were doing. But there was like this principal or something or teacher was teaching the kids, but he was almost like abusive and yelling at the kids and stuff like that. And I sat down in there, and all the kids looked at me like, almost like I didn't belong there. And they were like, they just looked at me. It's like, who's he? He's like, he isn't, like almost like, why am I here? I shouldn't be here. But anyways, they ignored me because the principal, whatever it was yelling. And what I come to understand was those kids were created this image of something they felt they needed, something they needed to experience what they didn't have, and it didn't feel real unless this was there, because they experienced it in life. So they needed something to oppress them, something to make them feel like garbage, and they were worthless because they felt that in life. Because if they didn't have that, it didn't feel real. And so it's almost they went through the process of school so that they can, I guess, come to terms of who they were and to live what they didn't get to live. But they couldn't let go of what was inside of them. Something manifested, and it was that.
Oh, I see.
And so, yeah, because what I find out later on, I'll get to it, but essentially I end up making two friends. I always make two friends, whatever it is. I guess like the recipe. But anyways, I met two friends, this guy and this girl, and they were talking to me, and they wanted to know who I was, and I told them that I don't know, but I was supposed to be looking for somebody.
Yeah. And
I looked at the girl. There was another girl. She had a green sweater. I remember she had like a green, like not sweater but hoodie. And I told him, like, I want to know who this girl is. There's something about her. I need to know who she is. And it's like, oh, she keeps to herself. She's always busy and stuff like that. Long story short, eventually, the principal said that they had a project for everybody. He wanted them to do it, and it better be good. He was being an ass. He was just saying stupid stuff and just belittling the kids. And then after it was done lecture, he would when lecture was done, he would fade or whatever. Oh, wow. Yeah, it was like he disappeared. Like it was, I don't know, it was weird. He just, boom, all right, lecture's done. And then I went to the girl and I started talking to her, and I told her that I really want to work with you on this project that you want to do. I don't know what it is, but I want to help you. And she was like, okay. And then we end up fading to this other area. It was like a football field, the same way like a thought in darkness, where it's just like the edges of it fade into dark. Yeah. And it was just this plane in this world, right, of the void. And it was this football field, and there was this big lights on the football field, and she had this device she was creating here, and it was this mechanical device, and the whole thing of the device was that she was doing everything she could so that what this device would do was bring these kids back to life so they can get a second chance to live what they couldn't live. And that was what it was. That was the function. And I didn't understand why it was happening or why would it work, but all I knew is that that's what she was trying to do, and I want to help her. And I told her too that I wanted to tell her something, but I was too scared to tell her. And what I wanted to tell her, she was like, what, tell me. And then eventually she got it on me, and I said, I'm scared that if I find the one that I'm looking for, that I'm going to lose her, and I think that's you. And then she looks at me and she laughed, that little giggle or whatever, that little.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I thought the same thing too. And I was like, so, is it you? And she's like, she just nodded her head. I was like, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel it right now. It's like, I grabbed her, I picked her up, and I was like, I found you. Yeah. And she starts laughing or whatever, and she hugs me, holds me, and then I walk around with her and stuff, spinning her around, and then she jump on my back and give her a piggyback. And for some reason, that was one of the things we always end up doing in some other dreams, is I give her like a piggyback and we run around. That's like our thing or something. Mm-hmm. And I grab her and I run around. And what's funny is that I had in the dream, the song Somebody I Used to Know was playing, you know? Yeah, somebody I used to know.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until I spoke to Ruben about it, the dream again, like a couple weeks back or whatever. I think it was like 2 weeks ago, whatever.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Anyways, like I told him about it, and I realized, yo, the song Somebody I Used to Know was playing. You know, I didn't think about it. I thought it was a beautiful song because I love that song. But the song, the title is Somebody I Used to Know. I was like, that was pretty cute and ironic. I was like, what? Okay. But anyways, we were running around the football field. It's like in triumph. Like, I found her. I have her. And we went to the device, and she was like, all right, let's get this going. Let's do this. And the kids fade in.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. And the kids fade in, and the device is getting started and going. And when the device starts going haywire, it just starts going crazy and then explodes. And like a energy shoots out, and like a bolt, like a lightning, something like that, just shoots out and then hits her. And then I just screamed. I was like, no, this is what's supposed to happen. And I'm like crying. I was like, no, I knew it. Like, I lost her. Here we go again. All these thoughts are running through my head. And I grab her and I pick her up and stuff. And I'm holding her. And like her body's like charred and stuff like that. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, no, I'm holding her tight. I was like, this was supposed to happen. This was what happened. And she grabs my face, puts her hand on my face, and then she pulls me in and she whispers in my ears, it's all about the journey, keep going. And then the kids fade away, and then she fades like dust, like the gold letters, and disappears. And I get up, and I was like, just like before, I was like, you're right, I gotta keep going. And so I fade out, I go back to the classroom, I'm walking around, and then I pass these cubbies. And the ironic thing is that the box braid that I had, every kid had a braid on their cubby. Some had like a spider web, some had like a cool design, but every kid had a box braid in their cubby, shaped in some way. And I was like, it was something interesting. I don't know what it meant, but that's something I noticed. And then I walked, and then I had the speech. I don't remember what I have. I wrote it down somewhere, but it was like essentially, no matter where you are, no matter if you're living different lives, if you're in the grave or I'm in the grave, no matter what universe you're in, I will find you. And I walked, and I found this area like a portal or gate, and I walked through. And when I walked through, I entered another world. And that was the end of that.
Wow. Entered back into reality.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's a crazy dream. Yeah. That is a crazy. And then I told at the time when he told me the dream, it was a lot more condensed, so I didn't know all the details. But in terms of like now that you've kind of had time for yourself to digest after not just a couple weeks, but just having this dream in your mind for a long time, what do you think it represented for you?
I mean, I'm still trying to figure out to this day. I'm trying to figure out if this girl is real. If all these dreams of this person I'm supposed to find, or if we're connected. Mm-hmm. Like, where is she? That's that aspect. The other aspect, it can mean that, a lot of things. It can mean something that I really want and I'm looking for. You told me a really good thing, what could it represent too, so what I said was that it could represent his his feminine traits in and of himself, because at least for all those
and especially for myself growing up with women around me, is that I developed male traits and I also developed feminine traits, and we all have both inside of us.
Donnie mind and miss.
Yeah, and so what I saw for him was that Carlos was getting in tune with like his feminine side, and it was like he was trying to understand, or like his mind was trying to help him understand both sides of himself intrinsically. And so through the journey and through the dream that he had, it was almost like he never really lost her the same way he never really lost himself. It's just that he has to accept that it's a combination, it's both sides, it's not just one or the other.
That's a good way of looking at it, but there was another way you said something else. Yeah, you said that she represented something. She represented something that I wanted to achieve or wanted or something like that, and that she was the catalyst to get me going.
Oh, it was like the goal,
the inspiration, the muse.
Yeah, exactly. And so it came, it manifested as a woman, because the whole idea of her representation in the dream, literally in just the words that you say, is that she is the journey, and she is like the guiding light to the path that you want to take. And so in that way, it's just another way of representation of that within your own mind, and to keep you moving forward. Because in our own ways as men, we want to have that partner, we want to have that support system for ourselves, not just the people around us, but a woman. And not so much that that's the only way. It's just in a heterosexual relationship, that's what we look for. We look for that woman that's not just going to be our support, but it's going to be someone who helps us in our journey in the same way that we help them. It's all a mutual thing.
I definitely can see that. I just really want to know if she's real or not, because there's many other examples of things I can show in media and literature that I've seen kind of echoes of that archetype of me and her and other things like that. And I don't know, it'd be wild.
But I definitely think you'll find her. I just also think that at the same time you will find her, but at the end of the day, it's always about finding yourself and taking that path, and she will show up in your path. You know what I mean? Just the same way we all kind of show up in our lives, either coincidentally or through chance. And the same way we kind of pull people who are similar, or pull people who have that type of ideology to ourselves without even knowing it. That's the beauty of creating these friendships and these moments in our lives that become these everlasting reoccurrences and opportunities for ourselves to kind of reconnect to these people. Because there's some people like that for a lot of us, where we connect with them one moment, or we can just hit them up and say, yo, where you at? And instantaneously they'll show up, they'll hang out. Or perfect example, Anthony right now, he's also my friend, but he was Carlos's original friend, and they're best friends in their own way. And he right now lives in Georgia, and he's doing his own projects, stuff like that, and he's continuing on his journey. But I know that when we all meet up, not just for myself but for Carlos, it's not gonna be a, man, I haven't seen you in forever. It's, yo, what's good, and it's all about exactly as usual. You just continue that. And so just never forget for yourselves, it's really about the journey and the path that you want to take, and really find that love. Because I agree with Carlos too, and it's funny that I understand that, but at the same time we all forget. Because in that moment, he asked me 2 weeks ago, he's like, what do you think is the most important aspect of life? And I was like, so many things ran into my head that I was like, you know what, I really don't know. And then he just told me it's the love. It's that love, man, and that's really where it comes down to. So I just hope that you guys share some love with the people close to you, share some love with your enemies, keep yourself positive and uplifted, and never let the negativity get to you.
Because always remember, it's all about the journey. Keep going.
Exactly. So thank you so much for listening, guys. It's RubenHood Alco Hero here as your host, and with my special guest,
Carlos De Juan, aka Many Wounds.
You already know, aka. Y'all have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe, and just give me some of your own thoughts. Truly, leave some comments. Let me know what you think, and hopefully we can continue this dialogue. Y'all have a great day.
Peace.